running second place at the moment.
And yeah, there is still a strong family link with the car. Racing quite a lot in the AMOC Intermark.
Yes.
And I think he had a season where he actually won every race but lost due to the a multiplying factor for each class, and his class was a plain old one, and it wasn't enough to enable him to win despite winning every race. But, very quick and very well sorted car.
60-minute race.
Absolutely, 11 car comes across.
Well, obviously the number 12 hasn't made it out.
That's actually James Neal, so that's the car's owner, isn't it? So
okay.
I think there might have been more at Donington.
Fourth place. Ayres continues to hold on.
I mean, we all know Snetterton doesn't get the best
is
grid.
Rainer Becker in the Daytona car, the RSR.
Best track.
Certainly authentic RSR that's two
it's just
top
because
10
it's
finishes to
so
his name,
far
as he
out the
told
way
us in
for some
qualifying,
people.
At the Daytona 24 hours. And
But I mean,
that thing
can
up
you
into
just
fifth place. He
imagine
was almost three
your
wide,
first ever race being in a Jägermeister Porsche 911 RSR?
That's right, yes. I have to say, if it was me, I'd be a little more
I don't think there's
cautious,
anything
but
more,
it's just so nice to
you know,
see
I don't
a
think
car
it could be
of
any better than that.
class and history.
Unless it was an F40.
Now it's
could not be dead
Yeah, it's
last
gone
by
past Christian
like
Ayres, so we're well on
laps
the move,
by
Ryan
then,
Becker.
but-
Beautiful car prepared by Andy Brill.
I get what you mean.
They brought it along to the Festival of Porsche that we had at Brands Hatch last year. And the car turned up on a Volkswagen Transporter.
excellent.
With hydraulic ramps underneath it, little arms. It was like something Thunderbirds, and it tipped up the front of it so that they could roll the car off the back. Unfortunately, they brought it on a normal transport assist, but it was it was getting more attention than a lot of the race cars. It looked absolutely amazing. It was so cool. But as we were discussing a little earlier,
Might contend with it is the Bradley. I don't think Reiner's car should be in the hands of myself. I don't think I trust my own abilities.
So Rob Holliman coming across for what's going to be his first flying lap. And that was just look for the time to come, but a 2:10, so obviously the fastest lap being the only person to set one. Yes. And Miles Maserati but that gap's gone out to 7 seconds now.
Absolutely, of course, Miles and Piers have been racing together regularly in the Classic Sports Car Club series, the 90s category for them, for quite a while now. In their very, very potent 964, but great to see them in a slightly elder vintage car, or great to see Miles in a slightly elder vintage car, and with such family history, of course. Porsche was really the backbone for quite a while in the early years of the British GT. Not only did you have some of the old RSRs coming back out, but you even had the blue Coral 935 for a little while there in 93, 94. And I believe Steve O'Rourke brought out a 935 as well before he took on the McLaren F1 GTR.
That's right, I think I actually reported on some of those for Autosport from when I was their man at Thruxton back many decades ago, sadly. But yeah, fantastic cars. I'd say the RSR, which does have that tremendous history, we were saying this morning, was actually originally bought from new by Hector Rabac, the Mexican Formula One driver, and its first race outing was the Mexico 1000K, which it actually won.
Yes.
So, history going right the way back. The RSRs really were cars like the Corvettes, 7 litres, and even the Ferrari Daytona.
of the RSRs in their day that really popularised them. You want a car that's quick, yes, but you also want a car that's, you're fairly sure, going to stay underneath you, and that's definitely what the RSR represented in period. I think still, you know, a reliable choice for historic racing today, as we can see. I mean, I don't think Mr. Becker would be pushing quite so hard in the number 5 if he didn't have faith that that thing was going to hold together. He's currently up there in the 4th position, having got past Ayres. And did you say Lucky or Harrison at the wheel of the 50?
It's Nathan Lucky in that car at the moment. What happened with the lights at the start of the race?
Yes.
You know, so the guy is coming quite cold, and he's just sitting there in 5th position. That is that X marks up the car, but I literally think, other than possibly changing the tyres, there's not an awful lot been done to it. It's still on those beautiful Fuchs wheels that I remember Mark running in it when he won the Porsche Club Championship back in 2011.
Absolutely, Mark, of course, a serial collector of iconic Porsches. I believe he's got the PlayStation liveried 911 GT1 still.
Which I have been fortunate enough to have a passenger ride in.
Oh wow, was that Silverstone Classic Press Day or something?
It was. We were, and you know, Mark says he wasn't pushing, but we overshot.
Okay.
My respect for anyone who's racing ever a GT1 car went through the roof, because Frank, I did 3 laps, and the only word I can use to describe it was brutal.
Okay.
It really was.
The only one you can use on my Yes.
2 corners later, thinking I really want this track to look a lot tighter. It was an tremendous experience. A 650 horsepower car on slicks with brakes, and it was just spectacular to do 3 laps. But been there, done that. Really want to do it again.
I'll take it. Time at 2:10.059, the best lap of the race so far, and meanwhile Mars Maserati at 2:14.1, so lost another 4 seconds or so on that lap, gap out to 13.4 seconds. Across the line goes Neil in the 11 car, and it's on its own little island there, about 12 seconds back from Piers as well, and then it's a bit closer, 4th, 5th and 6th positions. There goes the wonderful Becker car in 4th position, then Ayres in 5th, and what's the gap? Has it gone down this time between Ayres and Harrison? It's still at 1.9 seconds, and in fact slightly slower that time from Lucky in the 50. That's the car in quali you mentioned was a Japanese import, correct?
That's right, it was actually originally, I believe, a road car sold to Switzerland.
Aha.
And it was then transported to the Japanese, converted to a race car, but converted in that wonderful Japanese style with every extra bit they can think of.
Yes.
A lot of we have the large bug buzzing around in the commentary box.
Yes, indeed. Tried to go for my throat there.
And they actually rallied it.
Yeah.
Rally experience. I went on the Rally GB round of the World Rally Championship before. So not a huge amount of circuit experience. I know David Harrison has been here about 10 years ago.
Right. I think it's still actually got the rear bumper from the Asian market on it with square plates, like it looks like. It's time. Across the line comes our leader, Holliman. The gap only going up.
Now this does drive front range.
Coast.
It's one of those things that you sort of you joke about with a half we might have to type thing going on. But fantastic car. Rob's had that car for about 10 years. They've done a lot of development work on the engine. I think I said earlier it was a 4 litre. It still actually is the 3.8.
But
it's got a wonderful sort of list of extra little bits and pieces in it. I actually started writing them down as he was saying it, basically. So he said we've put every extra bit on the engine that we could.
Right.
So it's got the GT3 crankshaft, an RSR oil pump, a GT2 rocker arms.
Wow.
And all the bits. So it's actually putting out around 400 horsepower.
Goodness me.
So that is, a lot of horsepower for that
is.
car. But he's very experienced in it. But, although, as I said earlier, that was his first standing start, but he seemed to nail it.
Yes, he really did. He took off with quite the gusto. It was almost like one of the starts at the Goodwood revival meeting with the old classic 60s GT cars. He just took off with quite the spirited application of throttle. Back tyres went chirping away, and but he launched it cleanly. As he got the car underway, but he made it. He made it stick, took the lead into the first corner, and that's what counts.
That's the main thing, to be quite honest. And,
Yes.
you got the impression that by the time he was probably putting third gear. Yes. He's a fair old peddler, is Rob.
And so, in regard to, obviously, you talk about all of the modifications made to these cars. As the momentum picks up, the 993s are now eligible as well. So, is there any kind of stance on original parts, or sticking to how it was?
It's probably the first time I haven't actually had the opportunity to go across and say hello at some point during the day.
Yeah.
But in theory you could. So it's an air-cooled Porsches. Technically, I suppose you could run a 936.
Wow.
I think if we got a 936 out, then that would be a total showstopper.
Yes.
But, a Le Mans winning car, for example. But technically, there's the capability to do that. And we've got those two RSRs out today. So we've got Reiner's, that is pure RSR, and Mike Champions, it was actually originally raced as an RS and has been up-spec'd.
Oh wow.
So he's done a lot of work on that car. And he's not on Reiner's pace, but again, Mike Champion is another person here having his first ever race today.
Yeah, and you cannot say more than congratulations to him for coming out and giving it the go. And one can only look forward to seeing his pace improve as he gets to grips with his car. In terms of cars, you'd race for your first event. A Porsche of any description is a fairly intense choice, particularly one with the 1970s. Quite how on the edge they could be, and so you can only expect him to be a little bit careful. Look at this though, further back, the battle for fifth position between Ayres and Lucky is getting very close out there. They're just heading up toward, just coming out now of Agostini, and the back of the fifth is quite close. Their old 964s head into Hamilton for the 7th time in the race, and it is the Paragon. Classic wheels, the unencumbered by extra aerodynamics on the Paragon car, and then the red machine is a little more muscular in its current guise.
I think so, to be quite honest. And,
great performance for now. He's gone below a 2-minute 10 to a 2:9.897, which is